Hello and welcome to another episode of Karma Cards. I'm your host, Therese Tucker, and today's energy has been brought to you by the letter M for M-class solar flares because we've had so many, it's ridiculous. Today is Wednesday, April 24th when I'm recording this message, and we have had a crazy ton of M-class solar flares over the last 72 hours. I've lost count. That's how many we've had. I know that on Monday, we had 8 in one day. They're all M-class, which means moderate. But that's one step below X-class, which is the ones we're like, whoa. So there's just a lot of solar activity going on. Yesterday was the full moon in Scorpio. We had at least 6 yesterday. And today I've just been too tired to count because that seems to be the theme right now is how can you deal with higher frequencies of energy because we're getting blasted. And the interesting thing is the Arcturians brought this up way before April 8th. They were telling us it's coming. And now that it's here, they're like, told ya. I mean, not in such a smug way, of course, but in that, like, we tried to tell you kind of way. It's high energy. Today, the energy for a lot of people felt like being over caffeinated or really anxious. And so if you can think back to Wednesday when I'm recording this, see if you can remember how you felt on Wednesday. And if you put yourself in that anxious category, you are in good company because that seems to be predominantly what people were feeling today. And so I am recording this Karma Cards late in my day because it took a lot of effort to just get myself regulated to the point where I felt like I could communicate with you. So I'm really proud of myself for being here. And if you're watching, I'm proud of you because you probably had to deal with it as well. Now, the Arcturians did give us a message on how to handle this energy. I am posting that exact recording in my Modern Mystic Soul podcast. It's free. You can find it on pretty much every podcast streaming platform. It will be out on Tuesday, April 30th, where you can hear the whole message. They'll give you guidance. But hint, drink more water, add more electrolytes. That's a little hint, but they go into detail about how that's going to help you. So do look for that episode because it's very interesting. They tell us more exciting things are happening. But it is kind of been shaky energetically. And so if you find that this week has been a little tough, I mean, we have Mercury retrograde technically ends tomorrow on the 25th, but we will still be in the shadow of Mercury retrograde till about May 1st. So, April was kind of a roller coaster ride of energy. And we're still in it. We still have a few more days to go before we're done. So just hang in there and recognize that this is a time for us to focus on what it is we're transforming into, right? So a lot of times when we're going through these hard periods, it can be really easy to focus on how hard it feels to go through a transformation, how hard growth feels. And we can forget that we're growing or we're transforming into the next version of ourselves. And that is the goal to focus on, or the North Star is what's coming. And we're sort of in a hard period now. I've been talking to a lot of people and it can be hard to go through. It's hard to wait through this process. And I'm reminded of what I've heard. I've never run a marathon. I've run up to 10 miles, but I haven't run a marathon. And what I've heard about that is a lot of runners hit the wall in a marathon. They don't hit it in the beginning. They don't hit it in the middle. They hit it when they're so close to the end. And I feel like I'm seeing that with some people as they're just kind of hitting that mental wall where the exhaustion of the race is catching up to you. And it's a mental psych out that happens where you've been through so much. And in the beginning, it was like you remembered what you're doing it for. And at some point, the brain switches to like, how long do I have to do this? and I can't do anymore. If you're asking me to do more, I want to give up. And so we've got to be aware of this as we're going through this cycle, because it is intense. This wasn't easy. In fact, there are a lot of souls who opt out of this process. That's why when we get those waves of ascension, you'll see a lot of people leave the planet, and they'll leave sometimes in groups. So we'll see sort of group devastation somewhere that happens. Or we just hear of a lot of people passing over in generally the same window. And that's because ascension isn't for everyone, and that's okay. These people aren't going to miss out on anything. They're just going to do ascension the old-fashioned way. They're going to leave the body and then ascend, instead of what we're trying to do, which is ascend with the body. You got to remember, this is very much an experimental process. We're doing really good, but we're constantly being tweaked. We're sort of in an experiment that we agreed to be in. And that means there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of planning, of course, but things don't always go as planned. And I know that a lot of the exhaustion is I could keep going if you could just tell me how long I have to keep going for. Asking me to keep going indefinitely causes me to feel frustrated and want to give up and opt out. And the hard part is, it's well, if we give you a date, which has happened many times, that spirit will to our best calculation, this is the date we foresee. And then when it doesn't happen, that's actually more frustrating. And then people start giving up, or they become pessimistic, or they lose faith in the process because now they just think it's a bunch of BS, right? The problem when you're in an experiment is there are unknown variables, and it really depends on the subjects and how well they're sort of acclimating to the project in order for it to move forward. And that might not be the answer you want to hear, but if you are on the other side of this and your job is to be the caretaker or the overseer of an experiment, and the goal is to get these happy little people to move to this happy little place in one piece. I don't want you to discorporate or explode or implode, or I don't want bad things to happen to you. Are you going to rush that process just because the experiment is taking a lot of time? Probably not, because your goal is for it to succeed. And so you're willing to stick in there and have the patience and oversee and take care of those subjects so that they can do the goal. Whereas on the inside of it, we're okay, I get it, and I'm done, and I want out. Now I'm over it. This is taking too long. We have to find that sort of inner patience and understanding as well, that we're under an illusion of time here where it's already also happened. This is where it starts to as they say in The Good Place, fork your brain up, right? It forks you up, because if it's already happened, why do I have to go through this? And that's, again, because we have to align one plane of reality to another plane of reality, meaning this is a physical plane. It hasn't happened here yet. It's happened on the astral plane, or it's happened on the etheric plane. It's happened on all these other dimensions where there is no time and all time exists. And so therefore, we've already done it, but we haven't done it here. And that's what we're waiting for the lineup of. So if you find yourself going through sort of that hitting the wall, remember your goal. Remember that you did come here for a purpose, whether or not you remember what that is. Remember that if you're hearing this messages, you are on team mission, right? You're on, oh my gosh, every time now that my cat Floof is really getting involved in all of my recordings. She really feels like she's an integral part of this. So if you hear loud plaintive meowing, that's just her giving you her opinion. And she also agrees that you just need to have that spiritual stamina. You got to remember you're on a mission. And remember back to the point where you were sort of worried that time was running out. Do you remember that? So a lot of star-seeded people have two dominant feelings. A lot of them recognize. One is they feel like they're here for a very important reason, like there's something big that they're going to do. Many times this gets misinterpreted as I think I'm supposed to be famous. I think I'm supposed to be here to do something really big, like win a world record or leave a mark on the world or be really well known. That's just your sense of mission. And the mission is moving an entire civilization up the frequency ladder. That is a huge mission, way bigger than being famous. Number two, the other dominant feeling that a lot of starseeded people have is I'm running out of time. So not only do I have to do this big thing, but I got to do it like yesterday. That's how they tend to feel. So remember to when you felt like you were running out of time, like there wasn't enough time to do what you needed to do. And now juxtapose that feeling against this other feeling of like it's taking too long. It's taking too long. We got to find that happy balance between the two. So which is it? Are we running out of time or is it taking too long? Because I definitely want to see this succeed. I definitely would like to be a part of it. I know that it only takes a small percentage of us to do this successfully, and we will have completed this mission. And so I'd love to be one of those people that gets to do it. And I hope you get to do it too. And not have to take an early exit point because it's too intense. So, when I think about it from that angle, I'm like, what, take your time. Like, let's get this right. I just don't want to see mass suffering while we wait. And that's always something that feels like it's threatening, but I don't think we're going to see it at that degree. And we have to remember that there are exit points that people are taking. Some souls just don't have it in them to do this. Either they just didn't feel like they had regulated the body in time to do it, or there's other reasons. Energetically, they're just like, no, I'm pooped and I need to tap out. For whatever reason, these souls, when they leave, it might look dramatic to us watching, but it's very much a part of their plan. And they're very much taking an opportunity that will help them feel like they didn't miss their window. And so when we look at it like that, it kind of changes our perspective on it. So the message from the team at this time is just a reminder that this is a big process. It is asking a lot from us. If you're feeling fatigued, that's normal, but consider how far you have come and how really there's a smaller amount of time left to go. And it's based on us being tweaked and seeing how much we can take. That's kind of what they're doing right now. They show me this image of them like turning up volume or knob, right? Like they're like increasing the frequency and just seeing, oh, that one can't take so much. Like, let's tone it down there. Let's turn it up a little today and see how it feels. It's like that. That's such a simplified idea of what we're going through, but it kind of makes sense in terms of like how to foresee this. And so, if you're feeling the fatigue, definitely give yourself love and compassion and understanding, and remind yourself that you're here for a big mission and you're doing a great job. And this was never going to be easy, but it was always going to be worth it. And with that, let's look at this week's karma cards. All right, if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how they work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what's the message you have for us this week? And we got 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel what is the guidance you're looking for this week. Are you looking for action related guidance, or are you looking for outcomes? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you are choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for April 24th through May 1st. And the flavor of this reading. Okay, we've got the sun. She's been doing this when I do my meditation recordings. She is the worst studio assistant. Okay, this is so wild. We've got the sun, which is about being and like emanating the energy. It's being in that state, right? So we're emanating a certain type of energy. in the sign of Sagittarius, which is about mental expansion. It's about the higher mind and expanding into higher levels of consciousness in the 12th house. So this is the house of our subconscious mind, which is where things are hidden sometimes. It's about information we can't get to. It's sometimes where we bury things that we don't want to look at. And it also has to do with large scale events also come under this, as well as karma and endings. So this will be interesting. Let's see what they have to say. All right, if you're choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to demonstrate your highest ideals, seeking oneness with all there is. I feel like they're asking us to be in that place where you're thinking about the bigger plan. I know on the very human level, you want things done yesterday. So do I. But they're asking us to think from our higher self, from that perspective where you see everything, where time is not linear, and you understand how this ends and what you're doing it for. So think about your bigger mission and practice demonstrating that now. Demonstrate, live from that sense of higher mission to help you navigate through this time period. Mental action at this time, realize the rules of philanthropy. Okay, they're saying you came here for a how do you say that word? Philanthropic reason. You came here to be of service to others. So the rules of philanthropy are like, once you signed up for this mission, you're in it. Like you signed the contract, you agreed to come here, you saw what the reason was for, and it was a very valuable mission to take. So recognize that, like, once you're in it, you're in it. Yes, like I said, there are a couple of ways out, but for the most part, if you're one of those souls who's like, man, I want to take it to the end, you're going to be here till the end. That's kind of the goal, and it's worth it. But you came here to be of service to others in a massive, massive way. Physical action at this time, act like a leader, get out into the world and keep your involvement hidden. Again, you could go around and be like, you know why I'm here? I'm here for you. I'm here on earth to save humanity. That doesn't always go over so well. That tends to be read as like an egomaniac. So we're not really here to be like, oh, I'm only going through this because other humans need me to do it. But we're asked to demonstrate from, like, live from that place, act like a leader, like recognize, like, we have an impact on this earth. We have an impact on our immediate impact on our environment, but that also ripples out. And so when the sort of leaders, which are the spiritual leaders, are the ones who are here as a volunteer. And if the volunteers start getting weary and giving up, what do you think that's going to do to kind of the massive group of people that we're here to elevate, right? To be conduits of higher energy for. If we're letting our frequency drop down consistently, I'm not talking about from time to time, I mean like on a downward trajectory, we're not really helping the group, right? We're sort of, it's like in the never-ending story, the horse that's going through the quagmire, right? He's sinking into the quagmire. He's not rising above it. We're doing that too. So we're being reminded that the leaders are going to have to, like, find the energy to move forward, break through the wall of exhaustion, break through the frustration, and keep going, because your energy being able to do that has a massive impact on the collective. And that's the volunteer job. That's the mission, right? Is to help increase the frequency so that we can all do this. So, if you're just going through that point of exhaustion, give yourself love and compassion, completely understand why you're there, but then choose to be the leader that you are so that you can rise up in energy. Don't get bogged down in the weight of it. Rise above it. All right, now let's look at outcomes for the sun in Sagittarius in the 12th house of the subconscious mind. If you're choosing outcome, the spiritual outcome at this time is the creation of insights to understand your faith. Yeah, they're saying that this is part of the process. The fatigue, the the bouts of doubt, those are all part of the process so that you can choose again. Remember, we're constantly being offered counter catalyst, meaning we're offered 50% negative catalyst, 50% positive. And so this is a plane that's often referred to as the choice. We have to constantly choose. You'd think that it was kind of set, but that's not how it works. Otherwise, we're not really practicing free will all the time. We're practicing it once. And so this is one of those moments where it's like, do you want to reinvest in your faith or do you want to opt out? Which way are you going to go? You have the choice. There will be evidence to support both choices. Which one is more valuable to you? Mental outcome at this time, the gaining of respect for or from the wisdom of hidden tendencies. Yeah, I think that we find that inner will, right? We find that deeper will or the higher self connection. We get to tap in as we're sort of like making the choice. Do I stay committed or do I back out? We really get to tap in to that deeper sense of ourself. And we're going to find the will to move forward, even on hard days. And there's going to be more hard days because we're still in an adjustment cycle. It's not done. We're there. If you listen to the podcast and that I'm going to share next week, you're going to hear that there's a lot of tweaking that's happening now and that they're trying to get more to happen. And so we're not done and we're not adjusted. We always kind of want to find that level. Most of us hate plateaus when it comes to trying to grow in some way, like grow your money, grow your business, grow your relationship. Nobody wants to be on the plateau unless it's like energetically and that's like, yeah, I want the plateau. But do you see how we're so inconsistent in what we're asking for? Because many times when we're asking for things to stay the same, we're not really that happy with it. But when things change and we're not asking for that, then we're unhappy with it. So it's like we got to sort of pick a side, and this is going to help us. Like as we struggle, we get tapped into deeper energy because we're forced to go deeper inward. And that's what this card represents, is going really deep inward. And the full moon in Scorpio with all that Pluto activation that we had during that also drives us deeper inward. I got to figure out what's at the core of this. And so we get a gift by struggling with it as well. So it's all part of the process, but we still want to get to, what am I choosing? Am I choosing to believe this is actually working out and it's getting better, even though I'm still waiting to see that? Or am I choosing this is a bust and I want out, right? And I know those are two extreme positions, but where are you in that scale? Is that where you want to be? Do you need to dig a little deeper to see if you can get to an answer that's actually more in alignment with you at this time? Physical outcome at this time, things coming to light or life resulting from the understanding of large institutions or overwhelming events. Well, we're in an overwhelming event now. We're in that period now. So things are going to show themselves to you. Maybe not in a linear order like we're all hoping, right? Because again, we're taught to think linearly here. When we watch a TV show or a movie, we're seeing things happen in an order that we can understand. Although my favorite ones are the ones where they put things out of order and your brain has to kind of figure it out along the way. I love that. But we're expecting that. And we're more like in the version of the movie or the show where things are happening in a weird order and you have to kind of put it all together to see the bigger picture, right? So this overwhelming event is the ascension process. It's why we're here. It's the battle of good and evil that we are slowly learning about, that it's slowly being revealed to you, that it's not just a story and it's not just from a book or from, it's not just from the mind. There's something really going on in this plane. It's in plain sight, meaning like a lot of things are right in front of your face, but you're not seeing that it's connected. And you're not putting two and two together. As an example, when I say to you, catalyst is offered to you 50-50, meaning you're going to get 50% negative and 50% positive, if we step back, we can go, oh, that's like a battle of good and evil right there. Which side am I choosing? Which way am I going? Am I going to the dark? Am I going to the light? Am I going to stay in the middle and neutralize myself? Like, I don't know, right? Like, do you see it? So that's happening on such a large scale. And more will come to the surface, but it's also happening on the inside because, again, this realm that we're in is like a big mirror reflecting back to us what we see, and how we observe the world comes directly from what's happening inside of us. So as we allow our frequency to drop because we're so tired and we're so frustrated and it's not fair and blah, 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 as we go into those thoughts, we're lowering our frequency. The world starts to look darker. As we go into our frequency and we're like, every day in every way, things are getting better. I don't know how this is working in my favor. I just feel like it is. And oh my gosh, there it is. The world gets lighter and brighter. So the world is doing the 50-50 thing, the mirror world, the thing we're looking at. It's all happening out there. It's how we're focusing on it. And as we go through this period, we get really clear on, how am I looking at this? Because if I'm ready to give up, then my perception of this is not as bright as I might think it is. I don't have the faith that I thought I had, but I can go back to it. I'm on a sliding scale, right? My faith goes up, my faith goes down. And there are days where it's really hard to trust in the goodness of things happening. When we see dark things happening, we assume it's literally dark when we actually don't know soul's motivations behind it. When we see a lot of people leave the planet at once from a tragic event, we assume that's something horrible. We don't really assume, oh my goodness, those souls were ready to opt out. They wanted out because they wanted to assure that they make it through the ascension. They didn't have what they needed in place in the body to make the jump. So they're taking the window that they can. That's another way to see it. Yes, on one level, there's tragedy. And on another level, these souls are trying to do something where they're involved in the process and not left behind. It makes you look at it differently. And when you look at it from that place, suddenly you're like, wow, I don't understand from this perspective why that's a good thing, but I do trust the soul. And if they think it's time to go, then it must be time for them to go. And that's just one example of how we can shift our perspective looking at it. But it's going to show us what's going on in here, because as we get clearer about how we're sort of viewing energy and life and things like fairness. Fairness is one I see a lot of people get stuck on. It's not fair. And it's like the world never promised you fair. It promised you 50-50. And if you see like, well, I feel like I get more of the negative than the positive, part of that is your perception of it. Sometimes things happen in our lives where it feels wrong, and yet it was the best thing for you. I'll give you a personal example. When I've talked about this before, but when I got evicted over 10 years ago, that felt like a very dark time. It didn't feel fair. I had a really young family when my son was still a baby and my daughter was very young, and it felt very scary. Yet there was a lot of crap that I needed to learn, and it snapped me out of a false belief about myself. I had very limited self-beliefs. And I'll tell you what, having to manifest your way out of that, and I really did. I'll have to talk about it again sometime. Really taught me how small and little I thought of myself. And it got me to really dig in and do some personal growth work and adjust and really start claiming my worth and value. And I look back on that event now as a blessing, even though it was hard to go through. It caused trauma. It caused PTSD even. I look back on it and I see, man, that was a golden opportunity. And I took it. I took the lesson and I ran with it and I grew. So I guarantee whatever you're going through right now, whether it's hard or not, there's a blessing on the other side of it. And you'll see it when you choose to look at it that way. In the moment you're going through it, it's hard to do, but I'll tell you, if you can get there while you're going through it, it's going to make it so much easier, and you're going to understand its value so much faster than waiting till you're fully safe and out of it. Sometimes you really get to learn how much faith and courage you have by being willing to find the higher meaning through the process. Because again, the world just reflecting back to you what's going on in here. So I hope that helps. I hope that you're in a good headspace. I hope the energy as it finds you today is giving you good feelings. And if you're going through some hard times, take a deep breath and notice if there's a different way you can perceive it to help lift your frequency. And I'm sending you so much love in the process. Mwah.